Life's blows had thrown her onto the road. A homeless, helpless mother sat beneath the bridge, clutching her baby, when spoiled sons of a rich man turned her misery into a show, pouring water, mocking her. Everyone watched. Everyone looked away. Then suddenly a motorcycle stopped, one no one expected. This story will shock you. Before I continue, let me know in the comments which city and country you are watching from, so that I can thank you personally. Life had already defeated her long before that day. Under the shadow of the bridge, on hard concrete stained by time and neglect, the woman sat holding her child close to her chest. Her clothes were worn thin, her hands rough, her face carrying the kind of exhaustion that no sleep could fix. She wasn't begging, she wasn't crying. She was simply existing. People passed by. Some slowed down. Most didn't. A few glanced at her baby, then quickly looked away, as if eye contact itself might demand responsibility. Coins hit the ground nearby once or twice, more out of guilt than kindness. The child remained quiet, pressed against his mother, as though even he had learned that silence was safer than noise. Then laughter broke the stillness. 3 young men walked into view, dressed in expensive clothes, confidence dripping from every careless step. Their voices were loud, their smiles cruel, their eyes searching for entertainment. "Well, look at this," one of them said, pointing. "Family picnic under the bridge?" The others laughed. The woman lowered her head. She had seen this before. Words could turn into hands very quickly. Staying silent was her only shield. One of the boys stepped closer, circling her slowly like she was an object on display. "Hey, don't be shy," he mocked. "We're just admiring your lifestyle." He grabbed a half-filled bottle lying nearby, shook it lightly, then tilted it over her head. Water streamed down her hair, her face, her shoulders. The crowd gasped softly, but no one moved. Her body stiffened. She didn't scream. She didn't protest. The baby shifted slightly, startled, then settled again. More people gathered. Phones came out. Eyes watched. Yet no voice spoke up. She looked around just once, her eyes searching faces for help. Every gaze avoided hers. It was as if the entire crowd had silently agreed that this humiliation was none of their concern. That was when another presence entered the scene. A motorcycle rolled to a stop nearby. Not aggressively, not dramatically. It simply arrived, as if it had been meant to be there all along. A man dismounted. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed simply. There was no rush in his movements, no anger on his face. Just focus. His attention went straight past the boys, to the woman, and then to the child in her arms. One of the boys noticed him and laughed. "What's this?" he sneered. "Another hero?" The man didn't respond. "Hey!" another boy snapped. "Mind your own business." The man took a single step forward. His eyes lifted, finally meeting theirs. "This isn't entertainment," he said quietly. "And she's not your target." The boy scoffed. "And who are you to decide that?" The next moment happened so fast that the crowd barely processed it. The man raised his hand. One clean, powerful strike. The sound cut through the air, sharp and final. The boy staggered backward, disbelief frozen on his face. The laughter vanished instantly. No one spoke. Even the traffic noise nearby seemed distant now. Phones stopped recording for a second. Mouths hung open. Fear replaced arrogance. The man stood still, his voice low but steady. "Walk away," he said. Now. No threats, no shouting, just certainty. The boys backed off, eyes wide, pride shattered. One of them touched his face, still trying to understand what had just happened. The woman slowly lifted her head. For the first time, she looked at the man directly. There was no fear in her eyes, only confusion and disbelief. No one had ever stepped in before. Not like this. The man turned toward her, his expression softening slightly, as if he was about to speak. But someone in the crowd whispered loudly enough to be heard, "Who is this guy?" And that single question hung in the air, heavier than the slap itself. Because whatever answer came next was about to change everything. He had stopped the humiliation with one move, but when he finally spoke to the woman, everyone would realize this wasn't just interference. It was the beginning of something far bigger. The space beneath the bridge felt strangely still. Moments ago, laughter and cruelty had filled the air. Now, there was only uneasy silence. The boys had stepped back, their confidence shattered, their eyes avoiding the man who stood between them and the woman they had humiliated. He turned toward her. His posture softened. His voice did too. "What's your name?" he asked. The woman blinked, caught off guard. It had been a long time since anyone had asked her something so simple, so human. "Saida," she replied quietly. He nodded. "Are you okay, Saida?" The question almost broke her. She swallowed hard and gave a small nod, though the truth was written all over her face. His gaze dropped to the child in her arms. "When did he last eat?" Her fingers tightened around the baby's blanket. "This morning," she said. That was all he needed to hear. "Come with me," he said calmly. Saira stiffened. "Where?" "Somewhere warm. Somewhere you can sit without being stared at." Behind them, murmurs spread through the crowd. "Is he really taking her? Should someone stop this? What if this is another problem?" No one stepped forward. Saira hesitated for only a second. Life had already stripped her of choices. She pulled the baby closer and nodded. The man led her toward his motorcycle. Before she could say anything, he removed his jacket and gently placed it around her shoulders. The simple gesture stunned the onlookers more than the slap had. They rode through the city in silence. A short while later, they stopped outside a small cafe. Nothing fancy, no bright lights, just a clean, quiet place that smelled of coffee and warm food. The moment they walked in, every head turned. A rough-looking biker, a homeless woman, a baby in her arms. Whispers followed them to the counter. The man ordered without hesitation, hot food, soup, and milk for the child. He paid, then guided Saira to a table near the window. She sat down slowly, as if afraid the chair might disappear beneath her. Her hands trembled. The food arrived. She stared at it for a moment, unsure. "Eat," he said gently. "You need it." She took a small bite, her eyes closed. It wasn't just the taste, it was the warmth, the dignity, the feeling of being allowed to exist without shame. The baby drank the milk quietly, his tiny fingers curling around the bottle. For the first time that day, his face relaxed. Around them, people pretended not to stare, badly. Some looked uncomfortable, some looked guilty. A few looked irritated, as if kindness itself had disrupted their routine. Saira finally spoke again. "Why are you doing this?" He didn't answer right away. He watched the street outside, traffic moving like nothing extraordinary had happened. "Because someone had to," he said. The simplicity of the answer stayed with her. Outside the cafe, a few people lingered. One person raised a phone, recording through the glass. Another whispered excitedly. Syra didn't notice. She was too busy remembering what it felt like to be treated as a person. After a while, the man stood up. "We should go," he said. Her heart skipped. "Go where?" Somewhere behind his calm expression, a decision had already been made. "To a place where you won't be alone tonight." She didn't ask questions. She just stood, holding her child close. As they walked toward the door, a young man seated in the corner leaned back in his chair, phone still recording, a faint smile on his face. He had no idea yet, but the clip he captured was about to travel far beyond that cafe, and when it did, Syra's life would never be the same. She thought this kindness would end with a meal, but what was recorded inside that cafe would soon reach millions, turning her quiet pain into a story the world could no longer ignore. The cafe was warm, but Syra's hands still trembled as she wrapped them around the cup in front of her. Steam rose slowly, fogging the air between her and the man sitting across the table. Outside, the city continued as usual. Cars passed, people hurried by. But inside that small space, time seemed to slow. The man didn't rush her. He didn't interrupt. He simply waited. After a long pause, Syra took a deep breath. "I wasn't always like this," she said softly. It was a simple sentence, but it carried the weight of years. "I had a home once," she continued. "Not a big one, but it was clean. I had neighbors who knew my name. I had a life." She stared into the cup as if the past were reflected there. "My husband worked long hours. He wasn't rich, but he was honest. We planned everything carefully. Rent, food, the future. We thought that was enough." Her lips curved into a faint smile that lasted only a second. "Then one day, he didn't come back." She fell silent. The man leaned back slightly, giving her space. "There was an accident," she said at last. "At least that's what they told me. Hospital rooms, paperwork, bills I couldn't read. It all blurred together." Her fingers tightened around the cup. "I asked for help," she admitted. "From family, from people I once trusted. Everyone said the same thing. We're struggling too." She let out a quiet, humorless breath. "When the money ran out, so did their patience." The cafe's background noise faded for her as she continued. The landlord didn't wait. One warning, one day, then the locks were changed. She swallowed hard. "I was pregnant then." For the first time, the man's expression shifted. "I tried to find work," Syra went on. "But without an address, without references, doors closed before I even reached them. People looked at my clothes before they listened to my words." She shook her head slightly. "When my son was born, I thought things might change. I thought people would see him and soften." Her voice cracked. "Some felt sorry for us. Some gave advice. Others laughed." She described the nights under the bridge, the cold concrete, the fear of sleeping, the constant worry that someone might take advantage of her or the baby. She spoke of waking every few hours just to check if her child was breathing. "The hunger wasn't the worst part," she said quietly. "It was being invisible, being treated like I didn't belong anywhere." She stopped talking. The man across from her remained silent, his gaze steady but distant. as if her words had pulled him somewhere else entirely. After a moment, he spoke. "You didn't give up," he said. Cyril looked at him surprised. "I couldn't," she replied. "He's all I have." She adjusted the baby in her arms, instinctively protective. The man took a slow breath. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. "Some stories," he said carefully, "don't end where people think they should." Cyril hesitated, then asked the question that had been building in her mind. "Who are you?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the cafe window, where faint reflections of passing lights moved across the glass. "That doesn't matter right now," he finally said. "What matters is that you won't be sleeping under that bridge tonight." Before she could respond, a soft sound came from outside, the click of a phone camera. Across the cafe, someone had been watching quietly, recording without drawing attention. The moment passed unnoticed by Cyril, but the device in that stranger's hand was capturing more than just a conversation. It was capturing a turning point. Cyril didn't know it yet, but the words she had spoken at that small table were about to travel far beyond those walls. And when they did, they would reach someone who could change her future forever. Cyril thought she was only sharing her past, but her story had awakened something in the man across from her, something that would ensure she never returned to the life she just described. Night had fully settled by the time they stepped outside the cafe. The streetlights cast long shadows on the pavement, and the city felt quieter, heavier. Cyril stood beside the motorcycle, holding her baby close, her body tense, as if she were bracing herself for whatever came next. The man stopped a short distance away and looked at her. "Where will you go now?" he asked gently. Cyril didn't answer. Her eyes dropped to the ground. Where could she go? Back under the bridge, back to the cold, the fear, the stares. Back to the same place where her dignity had been torn apart earlier that day? Silence was the only response she had. He didn't press her. After a brief pause, he spoke again, calmly. "Come with me." The words startled her. Cyril looked up, confusion and fear mixing in her eyes. "With you?" she asked quietly. "Where?" He didn't explain much. "Somewhere you can close your eyes tonight without being afraid." That sentence stayed with her. For a few seconds, she remained frozen, weighing fear against exhaustion. Then she tightened her hold on her baby and gave a small nod. Staying where she was no longer felt like an option. She climbed onto the motorcycle behind him. As they moved through the streets, the city lights blurred past them. The noise faded into the background, and for the first time in a long while, Cyril felt something unfamiliar. Relief. Not happiness, not hope. Just a pause from survival. The motorcycle eventually slowed and stopped in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't wealthy or impressive, but it felt calm, safe. In front of them stood a modest house, a soft light glowing near the door. "This is my home," the man said. Cyril hesitated. A stranger's home, a stranger's life. The thought alone made her heart pound. Before she could say anything, the door opened. A middle-aged woman stood there. Her face carried warmth, not curiosity. Her eyes didn't scan Cyril's clothes or her tired expression. Instead, they went straight to the baby. "Mother," the man said simply. "This is Cyril and her child." The woman didn't ask questions. She didn't hesitate. She stepped forward and gently touched the baby's forehead, her voice soft. "May God protect him." That was all. Cyril felt her throat tighten. No one had spoken about her child with such quiet care in a very long time. Inside the house, the woman moved with purpose, not urgency. She prepared milk for the baby, laid out clean clothes, and set up a small, comfortable place for him to rest. "Let him relax first," she said to Syra. "You can breathe now." Syra wanted to speak, to explain herself, to apologize for being there, but the words refused to come. She fed her baby, wrapped him in clean clothes, and placed him gently on the bed prepared for him. Within minutes, he settled into a peaceful sleep. Syra stood there watching. A safe room, a closed door. No noise, no danger. The man remained nearby, quietly observing. His face showed something close to relief, as if a long-standing tension had finally eased. As the night deepened, the woman showed Syra a separate room. It was simple, clean sheets, a small light, and silence. Syra sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling. This wasn't luxury. It was safety. She lay down beside her child and slowly closed her eyes. Much later, the man stood in the doorway, speaking softly with his mother. "You did the right thing," she told him. He lowered his gaze slightly. "Some stories don't allow you to walk away." The house grew quiet, and for the first time in years, Syra slept without fear, unaware that this single night marked the end of everything she had been running from. Syra believed this was only a safe place for one night. She didn't know she had just crossed the final line between her past life and a future she never imagined. Morning light filtered gently into the house. Syra woke slowly, disoriented for a moment, then reality returned. She wasn't under the bridge. She wasn't cold. She wasn't surrounded by strangers who laughed at her pain. Her baby slept peacefully beside her. She sat up quietly, afraid that even movement might break the calm. For the first time in years, her body didn't ache from tension alone. There was still fear, still uncertainty, but not desperation. Then she heard it. Motorcycles. Not one, several. The sound approached and stopped outside the house. Syra's heart raced. Her grip tightened around her baby. Yesterday rushed back into her mind, the mocking voices, the crowd, the slap. Her instincts screamed danger. She stood near the doorway, unsure whether to hide or wait. Before panic could take over, the man's mother appeared beside her. "There's no need to be afraid," she said softly. "They're his friends." Syra nodded, though her chest still felt tight. The door opened. A group of men entered, strong-built, confident, their presence filling the room instantly. But there was no menace in their expressions, no arrogance. Instead, there was curiosity and something else. Respect. One of them glanced at Syra, then at the child in her arms. "So this is her," he said quietly. The man nodded. Without another word, one of the friends stepped forward and placed a bag on the table. "For the baby," he said. Another followed, then another. Syra stared as the bags were opened. Small clothes neatly folded, tiny shoes, soft blankets, colorful toys. Her breath caught. She didn't know what to say. Gratitude tangled with disbelief until words felt impossible. "We guessed the size," one of them said with a faint smile. "If something doesn't fit, we'll replace it." That sentence struck her deeply. This wasn't charity. It wasn't pity. It was inclusion. One of the men crouched slightly to look at the baby. "He's calm," he said. "Strong, too." Another laughed. "Looks like our guy, doesn't he?" The room filled with light laughter, not cruel, not loud, gentle. human. Syra watched silently, her eyes moving from face to face. These men, who looked like they belonged to a harsh world, were showing her child more care than society ever had. The baby stirred, then relaxed again, surrounded by unfamiliar kindness. The man's mother observed everything quietly. She didn't interrupt. She didn't direct. When the men settled into conversation, she gently guided Syra aside. "Sit," she said softly. They sat together near the window. "You don't have to explain yourself," the woman said. "We understand more than you think." Syra lowered her gaze. "I never wanted help like this," she whispered. "Life just left me behind." The woman placed her hand over Syra's. "There's a difference between asking and being forced. You were forced." That understanding broke something inside her. Tears filled Syra's eyes, but she didn't hide them. The house felt alive now, voices, movement, warmth. Not chaos. Life. Across the room, the man stood watching. His friends, his mother, Syra, the child. Everything existed together in a way he hadn't planned, but somehow needed. One of the friends approached him quietly. "You did the right thing," he said. "Most people walk past. You stopped." The man didn't reply. He simply nodded once. As the group prepared to leave, one friend paused near the door and glanced back at Syra. "You're safe here," he said simply. The door closed behind them. Silence returned. But it was different now. Fuller. Steadier. Syra sat on the floor, surrounded by the gifts, holding her child. Her mind struggled to process it all. Yesterday, she had nothing. Today, strangers had opened their lives to her. Still, a question lingered in her heart. Why? She didn't know yet, but beyond the walls of that house, the world had not forgotten what happened under the bridge. And it wouldn't stay quiet for long. Syra believed this kindness belonged only inside these walls. She didn't know that what began as a private act of humanity was already moving toward a moment that would expose everything. It didn't explode all at once. It began quietly. Somewhere, someone shared the clip. No caption, no explanation, just the raw moment, laughter, humiliation, stillness. And then the sudden shift when everything stopped. At first, only a few people watched. Then more. And then it moved faster than anyone expected. The video spread across screens, phones, and timelines. Viewers paused at the same moments, the mocking smiles, the woman sitting silently with her child, the crowd that did nothing. Each replay carried the same reaction: anger. Comments poured in. How could they do this? Why did no one help her? This is what power looks like in the wrong hands. People slowed the clip down, replayed it, analyzed every second. Faces were zoomed in. Voices were recognized. The boy's confidence became evidence, frame by frame. Soon, names started appearing. Questions followed. Who were they? Where did they come from? Why did they think they could do this in public? Pressure mounted. Some defended them at first, calling it a misunderstanding, a joke taken too far. But the footage didn't support excuses. The laughter was clear, the humiliation undeniable. Public anger shifted direction. Demands were made. Apologies were expected. Accountability was no longer optional. At the same time, attention turned to the man who had stepped in. Who is he? Why wasn't he afraid? How did he stay so calm? Some called him a hero. Others called him reckless. Many simply asked the same question: why did he stop when everyone else walked past? News outlets picked it up. Headlines appeared. A homeless mother humiliated in public until a stranger intervened. Video sparks debate on silence, power, and responsibility. The story no longer belonged to a single moment under a bridge. It had become a mirror, forcing people to look at themselves. Inside the house, Saira was still unaware of how far her story had traveled. When she finally saw the video, her hands shook. "That's me," she whispered. Her first reaction wasn't relief. It was fear. Every painful second she had tried to forget was suddenly everywhere. Her lowest moment was now public. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. The man didn't answer right away. He understood what came next. Attention never arrived alone. Soon, calls began. First one, then another. People wanted statements, interviews, explanations. Some offered help, some offered sympathy. Others simply wanted a piece of the story. The house felt smaller with every passing hour. Saira struggled to process it all. Yesterday, she was invisible. Today, strangers knew her face, her pain, her silence. The man's mother stayed close. "Truth doesn't stay hidden forever," she said gently. "And when it surfaces, it brings change, whether we're ready or not." Outside, conversations continued. Online debates grew louder. Pressure reached places that couldn't ignore it. Behind closed doors, decisions were being discussed. The boys' families issued statements, first defensive, then apologetic. Words were carefully chosen. Damage control began. But the public wasn't satisfied. They didn't want statements. They wanted consequences. Somewhere far from that quiet house, in an office filled with authority and influence, someone watched the video closely. Not with outrage, but with interest. They replayed the clip, noticed the woman, noticed her restraint, noticed how she held her child through it all. A decision formed. Back at the house, Saira held her baby tightly, her thoughts racing. "Will this pass?" she asked. The man finally spoke. "No," he said calmly. "Some moments don't fade." He was right. Because what began as humiliation had turned into a question the world could no longer ignore. And that question was about to open a door Saira never knew existed. Saira thought the noise would eventually fade. She didn't know that within that noise, a single decision had already been made, one that would change her life forever. That morning felt strangely quiet. Saira sat near the window, her baby resting in her arms, watching light move slowly across the floor. So much had happened in the past few days that her mind hadn't caught up yet. The noise outside, the opinions, the attention, the questions, had faded behind closed doors. Inside the house, there was only stillness. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen, an unfamiliar number. For a moment she considered letting it ring. Her heart tightened. Every call lately seemed to carry weight. Slowly, she answered. "Is this Saira?" a calm voice asked. "Yes," she replied, barely above a whisper. "My name is Daniel. I'm calling on behalf of an organization that recently came across your story." Her grip tightened around the phone. "We'd like to meet you," the voice continued, "if you're willing." Saira hesitated. "Why?" There was a brief pause before the reply came. "Because we don't believe you need sympathy," the voice said. "We believe you deserve an opportunity." That sentence settled deep inside her. An appointment was arranged. The next day, Syra stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her simple clothes. No makeup, no borrowed confidence, just herself. She looked down at her baby and took a steadying breath. The man's mother stood behind her. "Remember," she said gently, "you're not asking for anything. You're offering who you are." Those words stayed with Syra as she stepped into the meeting room. It wasn't grand or intimidating, just clean, professional, and quiet. The people across the table looked at her, not with curiosity, but with attention. "We saw strength in the way you carried yourself," one of them said. "Not everyone can remain composed under humiliation. That takes control." Syra listened carefully. They asked about her education, her skills, her past work. She answered honestly, without exaggeration or apology. "I want to work," she said simply. "For my child, and for myself." The room fell silent for a moment. Then one of them smiled. "We'd like to offer you a position." The words felt unreal. "A job?" Syra asked softly. "Yes," came the reply. "With fair pay, stable hours, and support as you adjust." Her breath caught. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't look away. "This isn't charity," the man added. "You earned this by surviving, and by choosing dignity when no one was watching." Syra nodded, unable to speak. When she stepped back into the street afterward, the world looked different. Not easier, just possible. Back at the house, the man's mother was waiting. Syra didn't say much. She didn't need to. "I got the job," she said. The woman embraced her without a word. No celebration, no applause, just understanding. That evening, Syra held her baby and allowed herself to imagine tomorrow, not with fear, but with structure, a routine, a reason to wake up. For the first time, she felt like she was standing on her own feet again. But life wasn't finished surprising her. That night, Syra held her baby close and watched him sleep. The job offer wasn't just work. It was proof. Proof that she wasn't broken, that she hadn't failed. She had been pushed. She made a quiet promise to herself. No more begging. No more surviving day by day. She would move forward with dignity. Before going to sleep, the man's mother had said only one thing. Respect doesn't come from asking. It comes from standing. Syra carried those words with her. Just as she set her phone aside, a new message appeared on the screen. It wasn't long. It wasn't emotional. It simply read, "We would like to discuss something else with you. It's beyond the job offer. Can you meet tomorrow?" Syra stared at the message. Her heartbeat quickened. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew one thing. The story wasn't finished yet. Syra thought the job was the final step, but that message was a knock on a completely different door. The next morning, Syra woke early. The message played over and over in her mind. Beyond the job. Those words carried both hope and fear. At the scheduled time, she returned to the same office where her life had already changed once. The room felt familiar, but the mood was different. One of the representatives closed the file in front of him and looked directly at her. "We've reviewed your situation carefully," he said. "Employment is a beginning, but stability requires more than that." Syra listened silently. "You're starting work with us," he continued, "but we also want you to begin from a secure place." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He paused, choosing his words. We want to help you secure a rental home. Not as charity. You will pay the rent yourself. We'll simply support the initial process. Syra's eyes filled. This wasn't handouts. It was trust. I want to earn it, she said quietly. That's exactly why we're offering this, he replied. A few days later, Syra stood in front of a modest apartment. Nothing luxurious, nothing excessive, but clean, bright, safe. The agent opened the door and showed her around. 2 small rooms, a simple kitchen, a window that let the morning light in. If this works for you, the agent said. Syra stepped inside. She felt the silence, not the kind that comes from loneliness, but the kind that brings relief. She signed the papers. When the agent placed a small object into her palm, her breath caught. A key. It wasn't metal to her. It was permission to breathe. She entered the apartment and gently set her baby down. He looked around, curious, unafraid. Syra closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she had a roof that existed because of her effort, not pity. She was no longer passing through life. She had arrived somewhere. Syra believed having a home was the greatest gift. She didn't know the most meaningful gift was still waiting, one that couldn't be unlocked with a key. Weeks passed, and life slowly settled into a rhythm Syra once believed she would never know. Work, home, and quiet evenings with her child became normal. Not easy, but steady. The fear that once followed her everywhere no longer ruled her thoughts. She had a routine now, a direction, and sometimes she had a reason to smile. Every now and then, Syra would visit the Hells Angels' home. There was no schedule, no obligation. She didn't go for help. She didn't go to ask for anything. She went because her heart pulled her there. Each time the door opened, the same warmth greeted her. "You're here," the woman would say, smiling gently, as if Syra had never left. Tea would be made. The baby would be lifted into caring arms. Small conversations would fill the space, nothing dramatic, nothing heavy. No one counted favors. No one reminded her of the past. That was what made it different. One afternoon, Syra sat quietly longer than usual. Her hands rested in her lap. Her eyes followed her child as he played nearby, safe and unaware of how fragile his beginning had been. The woman noticed the silence, but didn't interrupt it. After a long pause, Syra finally spoke. "Can I ask you something?" The woman turned toward her, calm and attentive. "Of course," she said. "My child." That word, "my child," hit Syra harder than anything else ever had. She lowered her gaze. Her voice trembled slightly. "May I call you Mother?" The room fell still, not with tension, with meaning. Syra lifted her eyes and continued, slowly, honestly. "You never asked me where I came from. You never questioned my past. You welcomed my child without hesitation. When I had nothing, no home, no dignity, you gave me safety without conditions." Her voice broke. "You loved me more than a mother loves a stranger's child. You gave me more than shelter. You gave me belonging." Tears filled her eyes. "I've never felt that before." The woman stood up without a word and wrapped Syra in her arms. "You don't need permission," she whispered. "A mother is chosen by the heart, not by blood." They held each other quietly, letting the moment exist without explanation. At the doorway, the Hells Angel stood watching. He said nothing. He didn't need to. He had stopped once, under a bridge, thinking he was ending an injustice. Only now did he understand what he had really done. He hadn't changed one day. He had changed an entire future.
The baby reached toward the woman, small fingers curling around her sleeve. She smiled and lifted him gently. "He's mine too," she said softly. Syria wiped her tears. These were not tears of pain. They were tears of completion. No cameras recorded that moment. No headlines followed. But for Syria, it was the greatest victory of all, because she had learned something powerful. Sometimes help saves a life, but unconditional love rebuilds it. Not every miracle arrives loudly. Some arrive quietly, on a motorcycle with an open door and a heart willing to stop. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because stories like this deserve to be told, and you deserve to hear them first.